rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. So, I ran across a couple of articles today, one of them being an opinion article, and it kind of hit home with me. So, I really want to discuss it tonight, and I really would like to discuss it, but because I think it is extremely important for us, especially in America, but understandably across the globe, to fully understand what exactly is going on with this whole globalist idea that seems to be occurring, especially when it comes to things like migration, migrants, immigrants, so on and so forth. And I'm going to get into that here in just a minute. Plus, we have a couple of things that popped in our government, in America's government, and so yeah, we're going to talk about that for a short bit as well. So tonight's pledge is going to be performed by none other than G. G is over in the green room. We got him off the couch. He's over in the green room, and we're going to go ahead and get him warmed up here. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with G as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, G, thank you for getting off the couch to come in and perform that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email address or email, and send it off to me. Address that email to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. I have 23 of these. I would like to have 26 by the end of 2026, so if you haven't done one, I'd appreciate it, and you could send it in. If you record it on your phone, utilize the share option. That's the SHARE option. And you'll be able to send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. Alrighty, folks, let's head on over to our headline sponsor, which is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution is a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education from a biblical world view. Now, they have a 3-step plan that you can do in order to restore our republic. The first step, obviously, is to pray. That's right, pray for your country every day. And if you don't know what kind of prayer to use, you can sign up when you head off to theamericanview.com. That's theamericanview.com. That's their website. You can go to the bottom and you'll be able to sign up to have a prayer sent directly to your email box every day. And you can pray with them every single day. Go to theamericanview.com and sign up for their daily prayer. You can also go there, theamericanview.com, go there, and you can pick up the option to study, because that's the second step. Well, how do you study? What do you study? Well, you study our wonderful Constitution. and books and educational materials about this wonderful country's founding. And you go right here in the video side, you can go right to this box that's above my head to start your constitutional journey. Enter your name, first and last, and your email. Click on Get Lesson 1 free, and you will be enrolled in the 100% free online course. It is nationally recognized, and they will send you lessons, one every week. There's 12 of them, one every week, and you'll be able to perform those lessons in about 15, 20 minutes each. I mean, they're short lessons. They really are. And it's 100% free, so why not? Why not learn? And once you're done with that one, you can go and check out the rest of their live courses that they have, all over the country. They have them all over the place. Ohio, South Dakota, Maryland, California. They've got them all over the place. And you can go and check that out by going to theamericanview.com and click on study. The last step that they request is that you act. Now, of course, taking a class is a matter of an act. So you're studying and acting at the same time. But what they'd really appreciate is if you became a member, or even better yet, became an instructor on your own. That's right. Become an instructor for the Institute on the Constitution today, and you can help restore the constitutional republic by teaching classes in your community. Now, they have 4 instructor levels, and becoming an instructor is really pretty simple. All you have to do is watch this video right here that you can pick up at theamericanview.com and become an IOTC instructor. Also, there are 5 tips for a successful class. They help you throughout the entire thing to get you where you need to be. They also provide you, or they will provide you, with an instructor kit when you purchase it. And it's got all kinds of information inside the instructor kit. You can also look up all of their other educational materials by heading over to their shop. And once you're there, you can check out their other educational resources, their apparel that they have, as well as the instructor materials. And you can also go to my personal favorite right here on the end. This is my personal favorite place in the store, which is the Legacy Library. The Legacy Library has a whole bunch of leather items that are just fantastic. Man, I would love to get the Declaration of Independence in leather, the leather Bill of Rights, the leather Magna Carta, and the pièce de résistance, which is the leather U.S. Constitution, and frame all of those up and have them hanging on the wall and in the studio. But that's okay. I will settle for the leather-bound U.S. Constitution book. You can take a look. I'm flashing. I'm moving, having the image move in the video right now. You can check it out by going to theamericanview.com, shop, and then hit that Legacy Library. You'll go and grab it. And I have that fancy little book right here. Yes. And according to 3 Chevy, one of my Whiskey Warrior P1s, long-time Whiskey Warrior P1s, he says each rounded cornered book, because this one does have rounded corners, they're sexy rounded corners, contains tear-resistant pages that are in numerical order. That's a fact, Jack. That's right. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around those pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. It has got stitching that goes all the way through the leather and the pages contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if you have a problem with this thing, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. Yes, that stitching it does last as long as the guarantee, man. I'm telling you, this is a really high quality product. I'm telling you. And you can carry it around in your pocket and you can use it to defend yourself against those leftist lunatics that you run into every day. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. My English Whiskey Warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to achieve your civics badge in scouting, not to mention your civics exam if they still have them. And you'll probably find a lot of information on the naturalization test right here in this fantastic little keepsake book. Head on over to theamericanview.com. Go into the shop in the Legacy Library and pick your Leather Constitution up book up today. And I thank them. Oh, and don't forget to sign up for that U.S. Constitution course and check out all of their other offerings. And I thank the Institute on the Constitution for being a sponsor of this program. All right. So, first things first, well, the House passed the funding bill for DHS. And that sends the bill to Trump's desk. The bill goes to his desk, will end the shutdown that began on February 14th. The House passed it by a voice vote today to fund the Department of Homeland Security, with the exception of ICE and Border Patrol. So this is the alternative option where the Senate had broken out ICE and Border Patrol funding from the rest of the DHS package. So at least now we can get like TSA paid and so on and so forth, even though, you know, Trump already took care of that. But get TSA paid and some of the other DHS personnel paid and so on and so forth. So that'll end that part of the shutdown. Republicans will look forward to funding ICE and Border Patrol in a separate bill through a process known as reconciliation that will allow for the bypassing of the 60-vote filibuster threshold that the Senate has that applies to most legislation. So there you go. And yeah. So they passed it. So that's cool. At least that kind of sort of takes care of it for the majority of the people there. Now, keep in mind, some of the conservative hardliners within the House Republican Party have withheld support, objecting to the language in the bill that explicitly bars any of its funds from being used for the Trump administration immigration crackdown. So, yeah. Earlier this week, the White House Office of Management and Budget warned that funding for the affected agencies could run out in May, which begins tomorrow. Yeah, remember that whole May Day thing? People are going to be, they're starting to flood the socials with all of that, the Marxists are. Anyway, if that happened, the administration may have been unable to fully pay the Department of Homeland Security personnel, which included the TSA and so on and so forth. So, yeah. Anyway. Now, both the House and the Senate were scheduled to leave Washington today for a 1-week recess. So, this came in right under the wire. Anyway, all right, with the SCOTUS ruling that we talked about last night, Louisiana has now halted their primaries. That's to determine who was going to run for president, or not president, but who was going to run for their House of Representatives, Senates, whatever, you know. And so Louisiana has halted the primaries following that decision. The reason being, of course, is that they need to kind of figure out if they are going to redraw the maps, what they're going to be doing. They got to draw the maps in order to meet those that constitutional requirement. You know, that the districts are not built around the districts are not built around race. And so yeah, they've gone ahead and halted their primaries, which will be kind of interesting in terms of the turnaround time from the primary when it finally gets back going again in Louisiana to the actual voting, which will happen again on the second Tuesday in November. Or is it the first Tuesday? I can't remember. Second Tuesday, first Tuesday. So anyway. All right. Well, Rand Paul, I don't really care for him very much. He, sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. I think here he's a little bit behind the power curve. And so, yeah. Anyway, Rand Paul apparently introduced an amendment to the Constitution. Now, keep in mind, we've had like literally thousands of amendments proposed, and only 27 of them, 10 of them all at once, but 27 of them have actually made it through the process. Well, Rand Paul on Thursday introduced a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship. Yeah. Anyway, it's not going to go anywhere. Let's just face it. It's not going to go anywhere. But he said, I am introducing a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship. Under current interpretations of American law, anyone born on American soil automatically becomes a U.S. citizen, regardless of whether the parent was here legally or not. He posted this on X. He says this is wrong and not at all the intent of those who wrote the 14th Amendment. We are a country filled with immigrants, and legal immigration is valuable and should be protected. But we are also a country whose borders have been too open and our generosity exploited too often. President Trump has moved to seal our border from illegal immigrants more than any other president. But we will have more to do. We need to make sure that only children born to legal residents of the U.S. are automatically citizens. I have supported protecting birthright citizenship from abuse since the beginning of my tenure in the Senate, when I co-sponsored the Birthright Citizenship Act of 2011. And now I am proposing an amendment to protect United States citizenship in case the Supreme Court fails to address this issue correctly. The amendment is, again, unlikely to clear anything. So, yeah. And the Supreme Court, of course, has already heard the oral arguments in it. But the timeline for releasing the decision remains unclear. My guess is it's going to be at the end of their term. So probably at the end of June, before they break and go home for a couple of months or whatever. Anyway, Rand Paul, a little late to the party. So, there you go. Anyway, well, the House of Representatives also did this, and this is kind of the start of two subjects that I really wanted to talk about tonight. So, if you are of a person who basically says that, oh yes, privacy is paramount, privacy here in America is paramount, and that everything that you do is private and should be protected, we are long gone from that point. I'm going to tell you that right now. We are long gone from that point. Well, the House has decided to pass the FISA renewal, and this was done in a bipartisan fashion. So this is both Democrats and Republicans that are doing the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Act, I think is what it's called. Anyway, and now the pressure is on the Senate to extend it. They never should have passed this. This was part of the Patriot Act, and even though the Patriot Act was like named really cool and fancy, the potential for the abuse of power is very, very real and very, very, very likely, regardless of who is in charge of the government. The government itself is. So House lawmakers voted 235 to 191 in a bipartisan manner to extend the Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act for the rest of Donald Trump's term. The vote split Republicans. More than 20 Republican privacy hawks voted against a 3-year extension of the warrantless surveillance program. The successful vote leaves the Senate little time to act before the fast approaching today deadline. So let's hope that the Senate doesn't pass it before they take off. Because if they don't, then it'll go away. And I'm going to be happy about that. And here's why. We've already seen General Mike Flynn get caught up in it. See, FISA, originally the idea was, hey, if a foreign person, meaning someone who is a foreigner, an alien, somebody that is here doing business or whatever, that kind of falls into that same, birthright citizenship thing. Anyway, there's like a correlation there. The FISA would allow you to spy on that person without necessarily obtaining any kind of standardized warrant, meaning that you don't have to necessarily swear out that you know that this person is doing something bad. You can ask for the ability to spy on them in order to gather intelligence upon their communications. Now, what's supposed to happen, as I understand it, is when a FISA warrant goes out, and keep in mind, this is not a typical warrant, okay? But when a FISA warrant goes out and they start to spy on this foreign person or foreign individual, foreign company, whatever it is, and Americans interact with that foreign individual, what is supposed to happen is that American or Americans are supposed to have their identity protected. They call that masking. And that's what happened with General Flynn. He had an interaction. They masked his name. However, because of the content of the communication between the two parties, the Democrats decided to unmask General Flynn's name, find out who it was, and, of course, prosecute him. Now, he, of course, ultimately has won that. He won not only the prosecution, but he also won over the fact that now he's even settled his court case with the federal government here just recently. But the thing about it is that a lot of people don't seem to understand is, even though my name and personal information is quote-unquote masked, my communication, my conversation is still being collected, which is exactly my privacy. My communications with individuals who are not part of the public space are my own. And I myself should not have to worry under the Fourth Amendment. I myself should not have to worry about a warrantless or unwarranted search and seizure of my personal property. I am supposed to be secure in my person, papers, and effects. Even my communications should be private. So even though this FISA warrant is spying on the foreign entity, if I were to inadvertently or even advertently communicate with a foreign entity, I could get caught up in that FISA, and personal information, private communications would be caught up in it, even though they may not be able to attribute it to me. It is still my private communications. So I've had a challenge for this. I've had a challenge in understanding this. I mean, I get the whole, like, we've got to put on some security kind of aspect to this. But in reality, the implementation, in theory, it sounds great. In reality, the implementation sucks. And so this thing, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you could just look. Donald Trump, Section 702 is what the wayward and criminal acting Democrat Party went ahead and did under the Obama administration to spy on the incoming president. That's what they used, was Section 702. And so, yeah. I think this thing needs to go the way of the dodo. Now, all of that being said, guess what? If you have one of these little things in your pocket, yeah, this is called a phone. Well, guess what? That phone, you're already tapping yourself. You're already doing a wiretap on yourself, and not only that, but a geolocation tap as well. So this, you remember the book where Big Brother is watching you? Yeah, I think it was 1984. Yeah. Well, it's no longer anything fictional, I'm telling you. As a matter of convenience, we went ahead, we as people, and I'm just as guilty of it because obviously I have a phone. We went ahead and just gave up our ability to remain anonymous. Everywhere you go, your location is recorded by that phone. It's also everywhere you go is recorded by license plate readers, Uber and Lyft transactions, and for some of us who use tracking software for our children, yeah, all of those as well, plus any number of cameras. Now, keep in mind, as far as I'm concerned, if you're out in public, legally you have no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public setting. Something like this, by the way, this is a public forum. So anything that I say here, I cannot consider by a court of law to be a private, privileged conversation. Now, that being said, if I were to do something premium-wise and you paid for that, well, that would be another argument that could be taken. All of that being said, though, your location history and everything that you have is in the hands of tech companies. Your cell phone information is in the hands of the tech companies. It's in the hands of your carriers. It's in the hands of all of these places that are not yours. As the Congress people just found out with the Arctic frost probe by what is it? I forgot. Anyway, by the Arctic frost probe. Well, apparently the U.S. Supreme Court just took up a case on Monday that is asking the question, can police and other government agencies force tech companies to share the information that they know about and that they have about you? And here's why. There's this relatively new tech. I'm going to say relatively new, but there's this way of tracking who and how many people are in a certain area. So for an example, if your location history puts you within a mile radius of a bank robbery with hundreds of other people, you could become a suspect swept up in a geolocation warrant, geofencing warrant. Now, to be honest with you, they have caught perpetrators by using this technology and using this to their advantage. However, there's only one problem. If you're a privacy purist, that could be a bit of an issue because you yourself might have gone to that bank, might have banked at that bank, for God's sakes, or better yet, never even entered the bank, just happened to walk by on the sidewalk in front of the bank. And you could be wrapped up in this geofence warrant and all of a sudden become a suspect. So Monday's oral arguments of Chattree versus the United States, the Supreme Court took oral arguments with regards to this. So apparently this case surrounds around a gunman who robbed the California Federal Credit Union, the Call Federal Credit Union in Virginia. And the police didn't know, they couldn't find the suspect. There wasn't enough information to find the suspect. And so they secured this geofence warrant, asking Google in particular to produce a location history records of every digital device within a 17.5 acre circle around the crime scene for a 2-hour time frame. Then police asked Google to also identify 3 individuals, including the man who was actually charged with the crime. Now, he claims that his Fourth Amendment right to be protected from unreasonable government search was violated when police used the geofencing and compelled Google to disclose his location history. Now, the case, obviously, is kind of a little weird because you got left-leaning American Civil Liberties Union and they call them conservative. They're not conservative anymore, but the Institute for Justice and the Cato Institute, Cato in particular, is not very conservative. And they're all arguing that when the judge issues a warrant allowing for law enforcement to pore over hundreds of thousands of location records implicating hundreds or thousands of people in order to narrow down a list of possible suspects, that is the modern version of the quote-unquote general warrant, which is not allowed under the Fourth Amendment. So, yeah. Now, that being said, Alito and Kavanaugh cited statements on geofencing's usefulness for law enforcement, and unfortunately, most of the justices sounded like, based on the oral arguments, that they may be upholding the bank robber's conviction. And because of the fact that law enforcement actually has to get a warrant to use geofencing, and much of the discussion actually focused on whether the standards for granting warrants needed to be stricter. So the justices did, however, anticipate how geofencing could be used or could be abused by the government. Another case that we all know about is the geofencing that occurred during the January 6th dust up. They used geofencing to figure out all of the people who were there. So, yeah. So anyway, the court itself, I'm sorry, I need to finish this. Chief Justice John Roberts did ask what's to prevent the government from using this to find out the identities of everybody at a particular church or at a particular political organization. So the court itself is probably going to announce its ruling in June. The implication, of course, will reach far beyond just cell phone technology. Google itself has already said that they have phased out storing location data and has announced that it will no longer comply with geo warrants. Alito wondered aloud why the court was even hearing the case in this respect. Unfortunately, though, many other tech companies do collect location data. So, yeah. All I'm telling you, man, is if you think you're private, you're not. You're not private at all. All right. Let me take a quick break. Let me talk to you about this wonderful elixir that I drink every single morning. It is known as coffee. Coffee. I drink it out of a 16-ounce mug. It says, "Father like no other." Gift from my kids for Father's Day a while ago. And yes, I do wash it, but it does have coffee stains in it, just so you know. Irrelevant to the conversation here. But if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has dropped. There is a limited number of units available. And in each unit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, as well as the Vitality Mushroom Coffee to try that has clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also receiving in the kit a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions. And let's be honest, it's not that hard to stir those up. You'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 coffee blow up on Rumble and are wondering if it's actually worth it. Well, spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com/studio. Grab your starter kit before they disappear. That's 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO, to grab your starter kit. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, folks, the Democrats consistently discuss things like, hey, diversity. Diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength. And what they don't tell you is what kind of diversity are they talking about? Are they talking about diversity of skin color, diversity of thought, diversity of religion, diversity of choices in clothing? Are they talking about cultural diversity? Are they talking about diversity in food choices? No, they actually kind of wrap everything up in diversity, in this idea that diversity altogether is our strength. Well, there's a report out of Canada that basically demonstrates that, well, diversity in culture may not exactly be the best thing in the world. So here's what's happening. The Canadian military has been recruiting recent African migrants into their military forces. And they did this as essentially, I don't know if it was like an experiment or if they're doing this as a part of policy, whatever. But the point is that these migrants apparently, well, they got a bit of a problem. Here's the problem. Apparently, there was a confidential report from Canadian Forces Leadership and Recruit School that revealed a complete breakdown in the basic officer training following the surge of these people. They had a single, here's an example, a single French language platoon, which had over 80% non-Canadian citizens in it. And apparently this platoon was racked by an inability to actually communicate. They also had a lack of respect towards the female Canadian force members and a bunch of infighting between candidates who were from different countries, like Cameroon and Cote d'Ivoire. So this platoon, which happened to be in Quebec, saw fewer than 1 in 2 recruits actually graduate. There were allegations of racial discrimination that were made in multiple directions, from candidates against staff, between candidates opposing the ethnic blocs that they came from. Additionally, command saw challenges in actually training permanent residents as they actually lacked respect towards women, peers, and superiors. The report explained for many candidates it is the first time that they have lived with members of a different sex. And for some, it is also the first time that they have been expected to treat women as their peers. Platoons are also reporting inter-candidate cultural frustrations, with the lack of respect towards women being the most common concern. Gee, I wonder, you bring in a culture that has zero respect toward women into a Western society, and you are surprised at the fact that these people, these influx, these migrants who've come here, first of all, don't treat women the same way that a Western person who has been born here and grown up here in the same way? I mean, seriously. Seriously. How stupid can you be? This is exactly what's going on over in Europe, especially over in England, where they have groomer patrols or groomer gangs that are going around. They're freaking migrant gangs that are going around and raping girls and women. And the European, or actually English, maybe even European, I mean, this might be happening all over the place over there, but Europeans they're not charging them with anything, because to them it's like, well, it's a cultural thing, you know. We can't punish them for something that they don't know that they're breaking the law on. Hello, don't bring them there in the first place. I mean, this is exactly the problem with multiculturalism. Now, let me explain something to you. America, from its very existence, its very first existence, was designed in a multicultural fashion to a point. What I mean by that is that when you look back at our history, yes, we have diversity of religion as one of our core tenets, because of the fact that we basically say that the government itself cannot dictate to us what religion we are to follow, and the government itself cannot stop us from practicing our religions. However, that being said, the far, far vast majority of the people that founded this country were believers of Judeo-Christian religions. There were Baptists, there were Anglicans, there were Puritans, there were Quakers, there even were some Jewish folks. There were, all manner of what is essentially Christian-based faiths that all came here with the idea that they could practice their faith in the way that they felt was appropriate. The challenge, of course, was the fact that all of those people came here with the same idea. And regardless of what the left tells you, regardless of what the left tries to explain to you or tries to make you believe, America was founded upon Judeo-Christian principles and values. That's the culture that we fomented here. Contrary to popular belief, we did not import a whole bunch of Somalis and a whole bunch of Muslims and all of this stuff. In fact, many of our founders during the Barbary Coast War that we had with the Barbary pirates, they characterized the Muslims as barbarians. Literally. They had no respect for any of that. See, the problem is, or the challenge here, is that the idea of the American culture is to bring together a bunch of other cultures and turn us into a melting pot, meaning take the good stuff that comes from that culture and get rid of the bad. The challenge, of course, is understanding that assimilation is key. And many of these people who have come here in recent modern times are not assimilating. They are not assimilating here. And this is evidenced by places in this country that are attempting to be set up as full Muslim zones and things of that nature. Now, if you're a follower of Islam and you want to do that, fine. But you need to understand that there are principles within this country. There are laws. There is the Constitution. And I tell you, the Constitution is in direct opposite or directly against many of Sharia law's tenets and values. And so realistically, if you adhere to Sharia law, you shouldn't even be here, because our laws and your laws are incompatible with one another. See, this is part of the problem. The leftists seem to believe, for whatever reason, they're like, hey, yeah, everybody, cultural diversity is our strength. No. Common foundational principles and values are our strength. Diversity of thought is on those common ground foundational principles and values is a strength. The point is that you have to have a common principle, common value system in order to understand what civil society is all about. If I have an individual or a group of individuals who are essentially, they don't think that women are on the same plane as men, that they are just property to be utilized any way that you want. You can abuse them. You can, whether it's physically or sexually or mentally, and none of it matters. That's going to be a problem in a Western society that has women like our women's liberation movement did. See, these are incompatible. And the leftists don't want to believe this. They don't want to believe it at all. They think that, oh, yes, no, it's fine. You're just, because you don't agree with these people and you think that they are not doing what they should be, which they're not, by abusing women, they're not, because our belief system is different than theirs, that you're automatically a bigot or a Islamophobe or whatever other kind of phobes you want to tied to it. You're a racist. But it's the commonality, the common foundational values and principles that are what made this country first form and thrive. It's those principles and values that we are supposed to hold dear that are what made this country the greatest country on the planet. And if you come here as a migrant without understanding that your foundational principles and values must be pretty closely aligned to ours, yeah, you're not going to make it here. There's going to be a bit of a problem. You're going to have challenges to work with. The Canadians are finding this out. The Europeans are finding this out. And in fact, Spain is now finding this out. So I don't know if anybody remembers, but Spain put through an amnesty for all of their illegal migrants that came over and settled in their area. And well, now a study has been released that says a majority of young Spaniards are actually seeing this migration as a real threat. This study, which was published in Spain, finds a majority of young Spaniards perceive mass migration as a real threat and associate it with rising crime, while agreeing that there are too many migrants in their country. Again, common behaviors, common value systems, common principles, common understanding of law. What is a crime in Spain may not necessarily be a crime in Africa. Just picking two countries. Well, Africa's technically a continent, so, or Ethiopia, let's just say. So the study, which was published by the Spanish nonprofit organization called Fundación SM, or Foundation SM, contains an exhaustive analysis of the current reality of Spaniards aged 15 to 24 during a 2025 survey across a wide range of subjects, comparing the findings from those in 2020 and all the way back in 2005. So, and keep in mind, okay, that over a third said that they consider religion to be quite or very important in their lives, with 45% of that third identifying as Catholic. Catholic. Yeah. So the study found notable changes in perception of the Spanish youth that they have toward migrants, a significant rise in support of the concept that migrants should assimilate, there's the key word, to Spanish customs and norms. There you go. And there was a documented drop in support for cultural diversity and the respect for migrants' non-Spanish customs among respondents. The study also documented a resurgence of support in the perception of what is described as real threats when it comes to migration. The amount of migration, the growth in crime associated with mass migration. As many as 61.7% expressed that they find that the presence of migrants has led to a growth of delinquency in Spain, over twice as many as the 27.6% who expressed the same sentiment in the 2020 survey. So just in the course of the matter of 6 years, it went from 30% to double. So, Similarly, 65.6% of respondents said that they perceive that there are starting to be too many migrants in Spain. In contrast, only 34.2% said that in 2020. Again, a doubling. The multiculturalism does not make us better off. And by the way, there's another study that comes out, and this kind of follows. So for those of you that don't know, I've been following a couple of studies here recently with regards to religion in America, and it is significantly dropped off over the course of the last 20, 30, 40 years. As a part of that, you also have seen a large drop in things like birth rates in America, like American birth rates. And so, as such, we are in a bit of a crisis where we are not going to be able to keep replacing the number of people that are retiring and will be losing, which this is part of the reason why Social Security is in trouble as well. But we've also found out that as with that religious drop-off, As it has been with the religious drop off, we are also seeing the drop off in children. And it turns out that, well, that might have a correlation. So, a recent study, an analysis of a national longitudinal study of youth data, investigated the types of family forming transitions people experience. They found that women who attend religious services frequently or belong to a conservative denomination were most likely to marry before cohabiting with a partner or actually giving birth. The paper itself was published in the Journal for the Scientific Study of Religion. So, family forming events are life events through which people create, expand, or redefine a family unit. They include marriage, cohabitation, and childbirth. Now, decades ago, most U.S. women married without ever having cohabitated. However, much more recently, about 75% of young women live with their partner sometime in young adulthood. Many also give birth to a child before entering into a union with a partner. Now, what a person's first family forming event will be depends on many factors. These include cultural norms, personal values, relationship opportunities, education, various life circumstances. But one important factor is religion. See, many religions encourage early marriage and discourage cohabitation and non-marital births. Now, the study authors wanted to examine how religion might affect marriage as a first family forming event. More specifically, they wanted to know whether religiosity, represented by how often one attends religious services, and belonging to a conservative denomination, predict marrying as one of the first family forming events. The authors analyzed the data from 1997 all the way up to 2019-2020, and the data itself came from 4,333 women born between 1980 and 1984 who were followed for a total of 615,451 person months. From the survey, this is what they found. Results showed that only 14% of participating women had marriage as their first family forming event. Of the women who married before cohabitating or giving birth, 51% reported attending religious services at least once a week in their youth. Among women who reported cohabitating first, only 20% attended religious services at least once a week. This percentage was 23% among the women who actually had birth first, before either marriage or cohabitation. Of the women who married first, 49% belonged to a conservative denomination, compared to 29% of those who cohabited first. Interestingly, 47% of the women who gave birth first also belonged to a conservative religion. Overall, women belonging to conservative religious denominations and those attending religious services frequently were more likely to marry before cohabitating or giving birth, and to do so at an early age, typically around age 20 to 23, compared to ages 24 to 27 for those who cohabited or had a birth first. Importantly, researchers also found that while religion delays the age of first sexual intercourse, it does not prevent premarital sex for the vast majority of women. Among those who married first, 82% still had sex before marriage. Overall, more than 90% of highly religious women and 94% of women in conservative denominations reported having premarital sex. So apparently sex is kind of off the table in this case. So, because religion was found to encourage marriage even after women become sexually active, the authors suggest that religious communities instill strong pro-marriage cultural ideals that go beyond simply prohibiting premarital sex. Now, there's more to it, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that our cultural values are being torn down. They're being taken away by the left, by the leftist ideologies that are running around in our culture today, that are prevalent in our culture today. And in order for us to save America, we are going to have to get back to those basic foundational principles and values. And regardless of what the left thinks, we need to abstain or push away the idea that migrants are going to make us a stronger society. Because if the migrants come here and don't bother to assimilate, yeah, we're going to end up like that Canadian platoon and just devolve into a complete and utter mess. Alrighty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are there, signed up and signed in, search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, a thumb sideways or a thumb by the angle. Across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.